cancer, high blood pressure, asthma, acne. These are all expressions of the body doing exactly what it needs to do in response to some kind of environment. So if we can see sickness as request, what that really means is sickness and syndromes and symptoms are one way that the body actually speaks to us. It's one way the body shows us something that's outside of our intellectual knowing. Welcome to the Holistic Life Navigation Podcast, where we explore life through the lens of somatics. I'm Luis Mujica, a somatic educator who teaches people how to find safety in themselves. Your turn to learn begins now. On today's episode, I navigate how sickness can appear as a punishment, but it's usually a request. This is something I wrote on Instagram a few months ago, and it says, when I was a nutritionist, I would hear things like, my cancer came back. I guess I didn't learn my lesson. I had a diverticulitis flare-up. That's what I get from eating gluten. My arthritis is so bad, I really need to forgive my mother. It's this idea that sickness is a punishment, an unpleasant set of consequences for stepping out of line, not being spiritual enough, or missing some mysterious lesson that, if learned, would cure my cancer. I would learn after studying somatics that these overcouplings with sickness do not help sickness. They create shame, more constriction and adrenaline, and more inflammation. I would also learn that sickness wasn't something being done to you, but coming from inside of you. An exhale from deep within, if you will. An ash cloud from a volcano, born from unknown imbalances, numbed emotions, and stored unbeknownst traumas. I'm going to say that one again. An ash cloud from a volcano, born from unknown imbalances, numbed emotions, and stored unbeknownst traumas. Not a punishment at all, but a request. A request to pause, to fast, to eat lighter, to breathe deeper, to call out of work, to be held and supported. Not a punishment at all, but an excuse to gift yourself with something nourishing. This is also true for terminal illness, the gift of enjoying every last moment, the wisdom from preparing yourself for transformation, the humbling gift of mortality that most of us avoid and forget about. Imagine if sickness wasn't a shameful thing, a bad thing, or even separate from our health and lives. What if we worked with it, spoke with it, included it in our personal work and growth? I'm curious where this goes for you. I love this contemplation because I spent a lot of my childhood being chronically ill. And in my early 20s, I spent a lot of that time having intense stomach issues and really major rashes that spread across my whole face, caused my hair to fall out. They would bleed and weep, and it was really painful. And it was a bit humiliating because I was often in a position to help people with their bodies as a nutritionist. And then it looked like I didn't know what I was doing with my own. And I didn't. The body is mysterious. We think we find something that works and then something shifts, but the body is an animal. It's a being of its own accord, of its own sovereignty. So we can definitely learn with it and respond to it and try things that might heal or shift certain expressions. And we're not in 100% control of what our bodies do. So I remember in private practice, I was in my office and a client came in who was overweight. And she was saying how disgusted she is with her body, how much she hates it, how much shame she feels that she can't lose weight. And I remember just getting this wisdom that came through. And I just said the words, your body is working perfectly. And she looked at me like I was crazy and said, what are you talking? No, it's not. I'm fat. I'm overweight. I don't feel good. It's uncomfortable and this body is not working perfectly. And I said, do you know how much work it takes for a body that's taking in excess calories or nutrition to store that as fat? That's a lot of work. It's so much work that that's why you might be tired, but your body's actually working really well. And she's like, I have never heard anyone say that. And I kind of think you're crazy right now, but I kind of like it. And it spawned this realization for me in that moment, as did so many of these gorgeous private encounters in practice over the years of sickness isn't something being done to us. Symptoms, syndromes that aren't being done to us, these are all expressions of our bodies. The body is expressing something in perfect accordance with what it's connecting or in relationship with. So excessive nutrition, which would be like excess fat, excess calories, excess carbohydrates, excess sugar, the body's perfect response to that is weight gain or insulin resistance or high cholesterol. That's a perfect response. It's not a negative thing. Maybe we don't like it. It might lead to problems and complications in our health. And at the core of it, the body is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Cancer, high blood pressure, asthma, acne. These are all expressions of the body doing exactly what it needs to do in response to some kind of environment. So if we can see sickness as request, what that really means is sickness and syndromes and symptoms are one way that the body actually speaks to us. It's one way the body shows us something that's outside of our intellectual knowing. And I'm going to read another post called Symptoms Are How Our Bodies Speak Without Using Words. I remember discovering this as a nutritionist. Way before becoming a trauma therapist, I would sit in my sessions with people and their bodies would tell me about their lives. One person was very happy with their job, yet their weeping eczema rashes showed me that their liver was burdened with stress hormones. Another adored her husband, yet her binge eating always started after he came home from work, and her weight issues led us to that awareness. I myself thought I was a nice guy, but I lived in a chronic state of fawning, and my migraines were my body's way of keeping me from smiling, nodding, and interacting with people when I was beyond capacity. Symptoms and syndromes are brilliant, especially for those of us who feel numb and dissociated. Before embodiment is possible, before somatic awareness can be had, or while you're learning it, your behaviors, addictions, and body symptoms will tell you everything you need to know. Follow them. Notice when they emerge, when they worsen. Notice what emotions unfurl from them, what behaviors, lifestyles, or environments cause them. And then what emotional states, events, and people are the root of the lifestyle and behaviors. As you sit with symptoms, you'll find roots that take you deep into your unconscious feelings and sensations. Symptoms are the messenger, not the problem. And that's what led me into somatics, because I started realizing this medicalized thing of disease and diagnoses and symptoms. These aren't fixed conditions and states that we're just genetically predisposed to. These are expressions of our body based on our lives now. And I know this from being in a family where we have genetic markers for diabetes and high cholesterol and weight gain or obesity. We have markers. All of us have these markers because of the people I come from. And most of the people in my family currently express those. I expressed those. So when I was 13, I was overweight, I had high cholesterol, I had asthma, and I was pre-diabetic. And what we started learning, or I should say what I started learning, was epigenetics, which is this, very simply put, this beautiful transformation that genes can do, where a certain food or environment or emotional experience can change how a genetic sequence expresses itself. It's like broccoli closes the door to diabetes and candy opens it. So food, emotions, relationships, environments that we live in, all of these external beings that the body relates to has an impact on genetic expression and has an impact on symptomatic expressions. But they're all just expressions at the end of the day. They're the body trying to find balance. They're the body doing the best it knows how to do. And as I changed my environments, my lifestyle habits, my foods, and my relationships, especially the relationship to myself, between my conscious mind and my body, all of these expressions dissolved. I no longer have these markers. I'm not even close to diabetes or hypoglycemia, which I was between the two. I don't have acne. I don't have asthma. I don't have high cholesterol. and I've maintained a healthy weight for the last 20 years. So this idea of medicalizing symptoms, it can implant the thought in our minds that this is who we are, this is what we are, there's no getting away from it because my parents were, because the doctor said so. And I think in maybe some extremely rare cases, this might be true. If you're born with something, with some kind of genetic expression, like I was born with an intersex expression, that's just my biology. Didn't develop it when I was 14. But for the most part, these are all responses to life around us. When you have somatic awareness, you feel the subtle cues of life around you and how you truly respond and experience it. For instance, I'll use myself as the example with fawning and migraines. Before I had the felt sense of my fawning mechanism, I would just be essentially engaging in conversation and spending time with people I didn't really want to spend time with. So as I learned about the fawning mechanism, I realized when I was in the midst of spending time with people I didn't want to spend time with, my whole body was bracing. My shoulders were pulled up, my jaw was really tight, my eyes were tight, my brow line, everything was constricted and tense, all these facial muscles. So of course I would have migraines. Tension for weeks and weeks and weeks would turn into a migraine. And the migraine would serve to propel me away from people so I could have rest. And I'd feel so good and I would cancel things and I would say no and I wouldn't be able to smile or laugh. I was just kind of, my body was catching up to what it wanted to do, but couldn't do because the fawning mechanism took over. As I became somatically aware, I no longer needed migraines to show me I was fawning because I could feel my shoulders coming up in a conversation. I could notice, like I am right now, when I start talking fast and I forget to take a breath. I notice when my eyebrows are furrowed or really tight from smiling and my jaw is tense. I can notice this now. And when I noticed it, I could respond to it so I didn't need the syndrome of a migraine anymore. Not as a punishment, as a request. The migraine is just saying, look at me, rest your head, be quiet. Request, not punishment. If you can play with this, I'm going to walk us through a little practice right now just to play with this idea, see where it takes you. Actually, I'm going to move my computer because I want to sit down for this one. So let's take a moment and let's just identify, okay? Let's identify a place inside of us. No, not even that yet. Let's identify a symptom or syndrome. An illness, a symptom on your skin, on your face, something you can feel. Let's identify something that we just don't like that our body does, or a disease or an illness that we are chronically dealing with. And the first thing I want you to do is notice how your body feels it. So let's say you have high blood pressure. What does it feel like in your body? Can you notice it? If you have something you can't feel, let's say you have high cholesterol, you can't really feel it. You wouldn't know except for a lab. Okay. Just notice, okay, high cholesterol. What is my body trying to tell me? Cholesterol is essentially when excessive triglycerides have to be stored as fat in the arteries. So this is a result of excess. So what creates the excess? What emotions drive me to eat more or to eat certain things that would drive up my cholesterol? If your experience is chronic pain, where do you feel the chronic pain in your body? Maybe you need to even pause this and go research your diagnoses more and learn what the biology is, what the function is. And then you might have more awareness as we do this exercise. But take a moment just to notice the symptoms, notice the syndrome, the illness, whatever it is, how it's felt in the body if you can feel it. And if you can't feel it, understanding the purpose of it. What's the body trying to do that this illness is called, right? Just noticing, what's my body trying to do to find balance? And this is one way it does. and see what emerges. I'll ask it again in a clearer way. How does this illness of mine, how does it serve for my body trying to find balance? What is it asking of me? How is it a messenger to help me learn more about myself, get permission to take care of myself, feel things I would be unable to feel otherwise? Just feel that. Really simple inquiry here. And it may take weeks, months, years, hours. It's going to be different for everybody. But ask the questions and notice what comes up and trust what comes up and play with what comes up. Don't believe it right away, but trust it as, okay, it's something in me coming up to answer this. Let me see where it goes. If we take our time with this, we can live life from this place of curiosity and of knowing the body is always trying to communicate to us. And if we can't see it with our eyes or hear it or feel those really early signals and sensations that are subtle, it's going to show us in a bigger way. Not because we're bad, just because we haven't heard it yet. That's the end of today's episode. Now let's take a moment to notice where we feel the episode in our bodies. Close your eyes. Take a breath. And let whatever wants to come up, come up. And remember, those sensations hold the wisdom that we're looking for. If you want to go deeper, visit holisticlifenavigation.com.